now, guys.
Is anybody?
Yeah, unless our Kirtana wants to play hard. I don't know. Maybe she's coming over.
Pronunciation or civic duty. This is the class for pronunciation or civic duty speaks to my heart. Hare
So people can also see me giving announcements. Shri Gandharvika is here. Haribol. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. She is a doctor who works like 80 hours a week. And then like as soon as she gets off work, she like runs to Bhakti Center. And like if she has like one morning off, is 80 hours a week a lot to work? If she has like, if she works and then like if she has the morning off, she's like running and comes and dresses Radha Muridhar. This is Sri Gandharvika. So we're so happy to, and so happy Sush and everyone. So it's nice to see everyone here. Thank you so much for being Aaron. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you everyone for so much. Everyone. So the way I'm going to start by introducing Hari Kirtan as our guest speaker today is I think it shows a lot to who Hari Kirtan is that the people in this room have assembled today. Because I see some, we have a lot of regulars, but then there's also a few people here today who are like, they're here specifically because you're here, because you're very, very loved. Hari Kirtan was actually born in New York, so he considers New York home, and lived in New York and then Long Island, but then he was just telling me as soon as he graduated high school, he immediately came back into the city because he loves New York so much, and was in New York minus a short stint in Alabama, which he doesn't recommend.
No offense to all you devotees in Alabama.
lived in, but you know, we New Yorkers are a little crazy. So he lived in New York until 2007 when he moved to Washington, D.C. And that's with Elizabeth. And who we're so happy that Elizabeth is here. We love her so much also. And that's where I met Hari Kirtan and Elizabeth in Washington, D.C. And they were always two of the most inspiring people to me personally and the entire community. The reason for that is because they were so deeply devoted to Krishna and also so like normal at the same time. And like so like real and like easy to talk to, and would have programs at their home. I remember the first time I went to a program at their home was with Devamrita Swami. And they would host wonderful programs at their home and still host wonderful programs at their home. And Elizabeth is a wonderful baker. Last time I had blueberry bars you had made for Radhanath Swami when I was staying with Shamala Priya. And also just like so encouraging as devotees. Like I remember one time I went for Arti and Hari Kirtan was like, no, you, I was like, I don't lead. He was like, no, you lead. And just like always encouraging everyone around him so much. And he's really doing really amazing service. He is a yoga teacher, but the way that he's explained it to me is that he's kind of like the yoga teacher for yoga teachers, and he teaches philosophy, he teaches wisdom. So he's the guy that people go to when they want to go deeper, when they want to actually learn about bhakti. And so he's actually brought many, he teaches teacher trainings, he teaches wisdom courses, he's full-time teaching, and Elizabeth is so amazingly like supporting him in his full-time teaching, and he's actually brought so many people to Krishna consciousnness through this teaching, and it's not just like he brings people to Krishna consciousness and then okay, like send for it, but like he brings people to, you know, because sometimes you see that, right? Like he brings people to Krishna consciousness, and the people he's brought to Krishna consciousness maintain a very, very deep relationship with him for the rest of their lives, because he continues to cultivate that relationship and help them to go deeper in their Krishna consciousness. So he's a teacher, he's a guru, he's a mentor for so many people, and he is, I remember one time, this is the last thing I'll say, but I remember one time we were listening to you give a Sunday feast talk at the DC temple, and Kunti and I were listening, and he's so smart, he's so intelligent, and he describes the scripture so beautifully and like so captivatingly that I was in the audience, and at first I was feeling a little bit like, oh gosh, I don't think I could ever be this like intellectually intelligent. And then I was like, oh, but good news is that Krishna says offer him a water, a fruit, a flower, and he accepts. So I was like, oh, I don't have to be this smart. It made me feel like better. But he is that smart, and he also attracts many intelligent people to Krishna consciousness because of his intelligence. So thank you so much. You're going to speak to us on renunciation or civic duty. He's got an hour. And there's 10 people watching online, which is more than normal, which also shows that people watch it later, but it shows that people want to watch it.
Because normally I'm teaching now, that's what I'm doing.
Thank you all very much for being here, and thank you out there in internet land for being here. Thank you very much. Bhagavat, Prabhu, thank you very much for your very generous introduction and for inviting me to come to the Bhakti Center. I will do my best. I will do my best to speak something that is truthful, beneficial, and pleasing. Advaitam, Savatam, Krishna, Satam, Chaitanya Devam. So smart that I forgot. Hey Krishna, Karanam, Gopisha, Radha, Vrindavaneshwari, Vishwabhanu, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Sadhguru Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Before I begin, I'd just like to quickly follow up on something that Champakalata said, which is that one of the ways that I think about speaking about Krishna consciousness and Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy is to simply share my experience, and then to teach anyone who's interested in what it is I happen to be sharing. You are all the world's foremost experts at your experience. Therefore, if you share your experience of practicing Krishna Bhakti, well, you're the expert. No one knows more about that than you. So if you speak like that, then everyone will think you're very intelligent. And in your cases, they'll probably be right. This is my first time speaking at the Bhakti Center. It's a great pleasure for me to have you all here with me, and a great honor to have you all here with me, to be here in this place. And what I would like to share with you today is some thoughts about renunciation or civic duty. And I will offer you two different role models in the Srimad Bhagavatam that we can use as our reference. Here's what I have in store for our discussion today. First, our criteria for deciding if, and if so, how we participate in the world's affairs. I'll speak a little bit about the greatness of Maharaj Prithu's character. So Maharaj Prithu appears in the 4th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The reconstruction of social order. The teachings of the 4 kumars in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam show up to visit Prithu Maharaj and speak to him. And then how to be a citizen and a devotee at the same time. Which sometimes we have to think. We think we have to choose. Well, am I going to be a devotee or am I going to be a citizen? Am I going to say adios to the world and just think about going back to Godhead? Or am I going to make my way back to Godhead through the world, through my engagement with the world? But first, what problem are we solving? That's not a rhetorical question. I'm actually asking you, what problem are we solving?
Death.
Death. The problem of death. And what comes after that?
Birth.
Birth. That's the problem we're solving. The problem of death and birth and death, repeated birth and death. Does that sound right to everybody? That's the problem we're solving? The problem of repeated birth and death in the material world. How did I know what I'm going to say? So, a while back, I made the mistake of commenting on a thread on social media.
Oh no.
Yeah. And the comment I made was something to the effect of how the Hare Krishna movement had become irrelevant. And one of my god sisters chimed in and said, "What do you mean, bro?" God sister. "What do you mean, bro? We're solving the problem of repeated birth and death in the material world. What could be more relevant than that?" To which I replied, "Nobody thinks this is a problem. We're the only ones who think that this is a problem in need of a solution." And solving a problem that nobody thinks is a problem is the definition of irrelevance. However, half of the equation, which you got, is right. Death is something everybody does think is a problem. And a tremendous amount of time and energy and money is spent trying to figure out how to flip the switch to turn off the effect of time, how to avoid death. And the leading cause of death for school-aged children in the United States of America is
Birth.
Suicide.
guns.
Okay.
Birth, of course, precedes this for all of us. School-aged children are not. But if we want to get a little more granular, if we want to get a little more
Guns.
specific about, right. Now, this is something that people actually think of as a problem. This is how we're doing with solving this problem so far in 2023. It's
The
actually,
number in 2023.
yeah, this is just in Q1 2023. 127 incidents of mass shootings. That means people shooting at more than 4 people. 194 people have died, and 466 people have been wounded. And I don't know if any of you have ever experienced being wounded by a bullet, but a gunshot wound is usually like a serious thing. So this is something that people think of as a problem in need of a solution. What's our solution to this problem? This is not a rhetorical question.
Gun control.
Okay, are we advocates of gun control?
We're all over the map.
Huh?
We're all over the map in that regard.
We, meaning the
We.
Hare Krishna
Yes.
movement, the people who identify as bhakti yogis in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, are all over the map. Some people think gun control is a good idea, some people maybe not. What does our philosophy say? Ahimsa, non-violence. Yet Krishna speaks of ahimsa as a attribute of someone who has knowledge. It's an article of knowledge in the Bhagavad Gita. It's part of his list. And yet, in the Bhagavad Gita, what is Krishna making an argument in favor of?
War.
Fighting, war, yes. Not just killing people, but killing members of your own family. And somehow or other, this is ahimsa? I don't think that gun control would have been like something anyone in the Pandava army would have been advocating for under the circumstances. Yes?
Our solution is to understand that you're not your body.
Okay, all right. So how does that help stop school shootings? That you're not your body?
Because with that understanding, these things happen based on bodily identification, more or less. You know, I got burned in this way or that way. I meaning the body. The problems are always reflecting the body. Wars because I think I'm this nationality, etc.
Okay, so someone who undertakes a mass shooting is motivated by their sense of bodily identification. And I'm just wondering if that's what anyone is thinking when they go to shoot up a school or blow out the window of a hotel and just start shooting at people and listening to a concert in Las Vegas or something like that. Is there anything more specific though? I mean, yes, this is the bedrock of our philosophy. We start with we are not these temporary material bodies, we eternal spirit souls experiencing temporary conditions. That's our baseline. But then we have to build off that baseline to something a little more specific and something more immediately applicable in a practical way. Otherwise, this idea, we're not these bodies, that can be used as an easy write-off for all kinds of problems, from gun violence to racism to discrimination of marginalized people. We can easily sidestep a lot of specifics based on this, you're not this body thing. You had something?
Yeah, two things come to my mind. One is especially because Maharaj Prithu is going to be one person that you're talking about in this lecture.
Mm-hmm.
So one problem that we have is we don't have proper leadership. In the Vedic times, when there was a king that was Krishna conscious and pious, they led the citizens and took care of their citizens. And when their citizens were taken care of and also given Krishna consciousness and their material necessities were also taken care of, then there actually weren't diseases, there weren't natural disasters, there weren't these different types of calamities, because you had a Krishna conscious pious leader who was creating the energy of piety and creating a good collective karma that wasn't bringing about these disasters. And what we have right now in our society is the exact opposite of that. And that is creating what I'm getting to in my next point, that is creating a lot of anger and hurt and envy and greed, and also negative collective karma, which gets me to my second point. When someone has anger and greed and envy and all of these negative qualities within the heart anartas, which is, you can't just blame the ruler. That's also because that's the reason why in this material world we have these anartas. But when you have that, why does someone go into a school and shoot people? It's because, well, number one, they were probably allowed to play video games, which numbed them to what they're actually able to do, so that they think it's almost kind of, I've heard some of these students feel like it was a dream when they were doing it, because they're just used to doing it in the video games. And number two, if a child is suffering with depression or sadness or anger or envy towards others, and also if a child isn't taken care of by loving parents, if it, just like a loving ruler takes care of the citizens, if a child isn't taken care of by loving parents, all of these emotions are within the child, and then that is going to go towards violence. And so what we have in Krishna consciousness is we have a solution to the problem of anger, envy, greed, and all of these anarthas. We have the solution to these negative emotions by the practice of Krishna conscious. And if that is taught to society at large, that will create one, good parents who can provide loving support to their children and give their children the kind of foundation and good environment where their child is not going to become a gun shooter. And number two, those principles can be taught to the children so that they don't do these things.
Okay, so I'll echo back what you just said, is in the absence of proper leadership, we have a situation where people, and in particular young people, grow up without a culture that elevates their consciousness and purifies their hearts. Whereas if we had appropriate leadership, as we understand it, then the entire society, from the big picture down to the family level, is guided in such a way so that the impurities of the heart are eradicated rather than amplified, and therefore this kind of violence is not likely to happen. that a reasonable?
That was an amazing summary.
Okay, well,
So
thank
smart.
So I want to assure you all that Champakalata did not actually get advance notice on the sequence of how I'm going to be presenting this topic today. This brings us to Maharaj Prithu.
Segue.
So yes, thank you for your expert segue here. So Maharaj Prithu is glorified by the citizens in the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is Canto 4 and chapter 21 in text 50. The citizens now are speaking about the wonderful character of Maharaj Prithu, and they say, "Our dear Lord, it is your occupational duty to rule over your citizens. That is not a very wonderful task for a personality like you, who are so affectionate in seeing to the interests of the citizens, because you are full of mercy. That is the greatness of your character." So, in Srila Prabhupada's purport to this verse, the king's duty is to give protection to his citizens and levy taxes from them for his livelihood. Since the Vedic society is divided into 4 classes of men, the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, the means of livelihood are also mentioned in the scriptures. The Brahmins should live by spreading knowledge and should therefore take contributions from their disciples, whereas the king should give protection to the citizens for their development to the highest standard of life, and he can therefore levy taxes from them. Businessmen or mercantile men, because they produce foodstuffs for the whole of society, can take a little profit from this, whereas the Shudras, who cannot work as either Brahmins, Kshatriyas, or Vaishyas, should give service to the higher classes of society and be provided by them with a supply of the necessities of life. The symptom of a qualified king or political leader is mentioned herein. He must be very merciful and compassionate to the people and see to their prime interest, which is to become elevated devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Great souls are naturally inclined to do good to others, and a Vaishnava especially is the most compassionate and merciful personality in society. Only a Vaishnava can fulfill all the desires of the people, and he is compassionate because he is the contributor of greatest benefit to human society. He is Patita Pavana, the deliverer of all fallen souls, because if the king or the head of the government follows in the footsteps of the Brahmins and the Vaishnavas, who are naturally leaders in missionary work, the Vaishyas will also follow in the footsteps of the Vaishnavas and Brahmins. And the Shudras will give them service. Thus, the entire society becomes a perfect human institution for combined progress to the highest perfection of life. What Champakalata said. Basically, is what Prabhupada is saying. All right, so here we are with the Vedic social divisions. The Brahmanas are the head of the social body, the spiritually enlightened intellectuals, teachers, and visionaries. So they're supposed to give direction to the Kshatriyas, the administrators and warriors, people in charge of governance and defense. And the Vaishyas, the entrepreneurs, that are in charge of farming, manufacturing, and commerce. The Shudras are the artisans, artists, and laborers, people who work with their bodies, everybody from dancers to bricklayers. And then we have also an unclassified groups, for one reason or another, are only able to make a minimal contribution to society. If we take this social system as it is designed and change the nomenclature so that we're working with more modern way of thinking about things. We have teachers, government, entrepreneurs, capitalists, workers, and unclassified. And in this system, the teachers are self-governing, so they are anarchists. They don't have anybody telling them what to do because they're self-directed. The government operates on the basis of a constitutional monarchy, which is to say it's a monarchy, but they're accountable to the people through the Brahmins. The entrepreneurs work on the basis of capitalism unto themselves. That's how they do business with each other. It's not the overarching system of culture. Hare Krishna. It's not the overarching social paradigm. And the workers work collectively, they're socialists. So they have unions who make sure that the entrepreneurs are taking care of them, and at any time they can go to the government and say, hey, the entrepreneurs aren't really doing what they're supposed to do, please see to it. This is what we've got. We've got the capitalists on top, and therefore the whole overarching ideology is capitalism, and the government works for the capitalists. In fact, you can hardly tell them apart. The business of America is business, and when we protect American interests, what we really mean is we are protecting American business interests. And the workers are not just workers anymore, they're consumers. Their job is to work to produce goods for the entrepreneurs that they then turn around and consume in order to be at least happy enough that they'll keep working. The teachers, unfortunately, have fallen to the bottom. They are the least valued folks. Ask any teacher who has to be accountable to any Board of Education almost anywhere. Now, the question is, how do we build a bridge from this to this? Yeah, we've got a solution, but how do we get there from here? What do we do in order to create a reordering of the social structure so that things go according to plan, or Krishna's plan?
Is that a rhetorical question?
This is not a rhetorical question. I'm actually asking you, how will we build this bridge? Any thoughts on what's a good first step? Yes, sir.
It's to educate the Kshatriyas of the government because they have the power and the resources to bring about a large-scale change in the system.
Okay, so to educate the government administrators, to the politicians, because they're the ones who actually have the power to do this. Okay, good. Yeah, thank you. Yes?
More progressive tax policy.
More progressive
Tax policy.
tax policies. Okay. How would that help build this bridge?
It'll kind of refunnel money to where it needs to go in terms of kind of supporting teachers and the priorities of that.
Okay. So the redistribution of wealth through taxation of the capitalists so that the money is distributed by the government into the places it's actually needed to serve the interests of the people rather than just the interests of the entrepreneurs. Okay? All right, good. And it sounds to me from that last purport like that's actually our philosophy, that the government is supposed to tax the entrepreneurs and redistribute the wealth. Prabhupada elsewhere uses this exact phrase, redistribute the wealth according to everyone's needs, which sounds kind of socialist to me.
That's where Bernie got it.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing you'd expect Bernie Sanders to say. Yeah, and yet, that's our philosophy. How curious. All right, any other thoughts about how we can build this bridge? Yes, sir.
Teachers should be enlightened in spiritual knowledge so they can provide also spiritual guidance and purify the whole system by becoming itself independent of material circumstances, not becoming dependent on capitalists and working for money, but be ready to sacrifice and working without that.
Okay, so the education of teachers in not just material knowledge, but spiritual knowledge, so that the people they teach grow up hearing about spiritual values and not just materialistic consumerism and that sort of thing. So the values, so in other words, educate the teachers so that the society's values change from material to spiritual. Is that fair? Okay, good. All right, thank you. Yes?
Let's say if you have an aptitude for it, trying to get in a position of leadership.
Yeah, if we have an aptitude for leadership, to pursue a leadership position. This is also consistent with our philosophy and with the history of ISKCON. Srila Prabhupada supported devotees aspiring to political office, and at one point there was an effort to do so that was only stopped because there was too close a relationship between the political campaign and ISKCON, and there was an issue with regard to the tax status of ISKCON as a religious nonprofit. But as a matter of principle, yes, people with leadership aptitude who are also devotees should also aspire to leadership positions. All right, thank you. Yes?
Sort of dovetailing what Gopal and Elizabeth just sort of said, so if in fact teachers gave out good information so people were informed and living a pious life, that when someone is running for some sort of political office, they choose the right candidate in terms of using their vote, which in America we talk a lot about, like using the power of the vote to change society. But when there's so few people that actually there's a choice that is at all elevating, then what are people to do? But if, like Gopal says it from the bottom, because who are the leaders but us? So if there's a teacher or a teacher disseminating that knowledge, pious people are elevated, people have the intelligence, oh, I know that's good and that's bad, that maybe could help.
All right, let me make sure I understand this properly. Are you suggesting that devotees should vote?
Yes, I am.
Oh, what a radical proposition that is. Let's think about that. But before we think about that, yes, go ahead, one more.
So with the fabric that we have boxed everything, right? We have boxed capitalist in one box, government in another box. So the current structure, I mean, earlier it was very easy to segregate these various, the levels that we have. But right now, the current fabric of the society is that it is all intermixed. Like, for example, government and teachers, and like some teachers are in government, some entrepreneurs are also in government, and some teachers are entrepreneurs. So let's go back to the, like for example, Prabhupada, and before times where teachers never had to work for material wealth. There was an ashram, disciples used to go there, whatever they could offer or do service, they used to get back that, and that was a very simple, humble thought that, but present day, I mean, teachers have to work, slog from material wealth, I mean, they have to run their family. For example, a yoga teacher is no more a yoga teacher, she's as well as an entrepreneur. She might be a capitalist, and she might be much more than she might be in the government too. So that's an intermixed fabric.
So we have a mashup.
It's a mashup. It's a mashup potato. It's a mashup, like.
Yes, and this is something that Arjuna warned against in the Bhagavad Gita. That hey, if so the leaders of society are all killed, who's going to mind the store of making sure that there's not a lot of overlap in different varnas? And plug for Her Grace Urmila Prabhu. She's going to be giving a class in a couple of weeks on career dharma, and I happen to know that she's going to talk about why it is actually dangerous for someone with one set of aptitudes and inclinations to take on the work of different categories. So stay tuned for that. That part of her talk, that alone is worth the price of admission, but the rest of it is also very good. All right, so
let's find, we have a system of epistemology which begins with Guru Shastra Sadhu. We want to hear from the Brahmana Vaishnavas to make sure we're on the right track. So let's check in with the four kumars. The four kumaras stopped by to visit Maharaj Ritu, which in their case means they just sort of popped in from outer space. That's exactly what they did. I mean, they, no spaceship, they just pop in from outer space, and they're greeted very nicely, and in a very exemplary way by Maharaj Ritu. And after being so greeted, they spoke. And here's a little bit of what they had to say. So Maitreya is speaking to Vidura, and he's relating this incident. And the great sage Maitreya said, while the citizens were thus praying to the most powerful King Kritu, the four Kumaras, who were as bright as the sun, arrived on the spot. And then, in verse 24, we hear from Sanat Kumara, speaking on behalf of the other three Kumaras, and he says, a candidate for spiritual advancement must be non-violent, must follow in the footsteps of great acharyas, must always remember the nectar of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, must follow the regulative principles without material desire, and while following the regulative principles, should not blaspheme others. The devotee should lead a very simple life and not be disturbed by the duality of opposing elements. He should learn to tolerate them. So this sounds a little bit like one should be apolitical. Republicans, Democrats, duality of opposing elements, MTG, AOC, wet stool, dry stool, it's all the same thing. Let's have nothing to do with it. In the purport, oh, no, not this purport, the next one. I'm getting ahead of myself. What happens if we are not disturbed by opposing elements, and those opposing elements present us with some real problems? For example, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, a devotee should be tolerant and should be very much compassionate towards others. For example, if he suffers personal injury, he should tolerate it. But if someone else suffers injury, the devotee need not tolerate it. The whole world is full of violence, and a devotee's first business is to stop this violence, including the unnecessary slaughter of animals. Srila Prabhupada goes on in some detail in his purport, and he says another important point mentioned in this connection is anindaya. We should not criticize others' methods of religion. There are different types of religious systems operating under different qualities of nature. Those operating in the modes of ignorance and passion cannot be as perfect as the system in the mode of goodness. In Bhagavad Gita, everything has been divided into three qualitative divisions. Therefore, religious systems are similarly categorized. When people are mostly under the modes of passion and ignorance, their system of religion will be of the same quality. A devotee, instead of criticizing such systems, will encourage the followers to stick to their principles so that gradually they can come to the platform of religion goodness. Simply by criticizing them, a devotee's mind will be agitated. Thus, a devotee should tolerate and learn to stop agitation. Now, that sounds pretty good. In some circumstances, Prabhupada advises us one way, and in other circumstances, Prabhupada advises us in another way. So now, the question should be, let's look at religion in the mode of ignorance. That act, from the Bhagavad Gita now, the 18th chapter, that action performed in illusion, in disregard for scriptural injunctions, and without concern for future bondage or for violence or distress caused to others, is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Now, we just heard that a devotee's first business is to see to it that others are not harmed. We tolerate injury to ourselves, but not towards others. And here we find that religion influenced by the mode of ignorance causes violence and distress to others, or that people practicing it really don't care if that's going on. That understanding, now from text 32, that understanding which considers irreligion to be religion and religion to be irreligion under the spell of illusion and darkness strives always in the wrong direction, and that is in the mode of ignorance. So what happens if you're going the wrong way?
Oh, you're gonna crash.
That's what's going to happen if you're going the wrong way. It's dangerous. So if someone else suffers injury, the devotee need not tolerate it. The whole world is full of violence, and a devotee's first business is to stop this violence. So the question becomes, and this is a rhetorical question, what do we do when religion in the mode of ignorance is injurious to others? Do we simply say, well, that's their religion, and we encourage them to engage in this religion that is injurious to others? No, this is not actually what we do, because when the practice of someone's religion is no longer private and is transformed into a social movement rather than just a religious movement, then we have a duty to push back against the social ramifications of that kind of thinking for the sake of protecting others, because that's our duty. So back to the Srimad Bhagavatam now, in the 28th verse of the next chapter, chapter 22, we hear, when the soul exists for sense gratification, he creates different desires, and for that reason he becomes subjected to designations. When one is in the transcendental position, he is no longer interested in anything except fulfilling the desires of the Lord. The liberated, this is now from the purport. The liberated person has no attachment for anything material or for sense gratification. He understands that everything is connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that everything should be engaged in the service of the Lord. Everything should be engaged in the service of the Lord. Therefore, he does not give up anything, including the right to vote. There is no question of renouncing anything, because the Paramahansa knows how to engage everything in the service of the Lord. There is no question of renouncing anything, because the Paramahansa knows how to engage everything in the service of the Lord. This is an important point, because I guess I moved that slide since I printed out my cheat sheet. So now, jumping to verse 50. Being self-satisfied, this is now the conclusion of this chapter. Being self-satisfied, Maharaj Prithu executed his duties as perfectly as possible according to the time and his situation, strength, and financial position. His only aim in all his activities was to satisfy the absolute truth. In this way, he duly acted. So, Maharaj Prithu, he has a prescribed duty to protect the citizens. The Kumaras have a different prescribed duty, to give transcendental knowledge to people like Maharaj Prithu, even though Maharaj Prithu is himself a very self-realized person. So, whereas the four Kumaras dispense transcendental knowledge and then pop back off into outer space to go hang out with a devotee in some other planet, Maharaj Prithu's job is to be an administrator on planet Earth and work towards, for the benefit of everyone who is under his protection. So, Maharaj Prithu, this is now from the purport, Maharaj Prithu was a responsible monarch, and he had to execute the duties of a kshatriya and a king, and a devotee at the same time. How many of you can fly in outer space without a spaceship? For some of us who can do that, our duty is to teach transcendental knowledge and then let other people take care of the world. Those devotees are usually called sannyasis, renunciates. And for some people also, even if they're not sannyasis, because of their natural aptitude and inclination, their best service to the world is to chant Harinam, Sankirtan, 24 hours a day. Let other people who have the aptitude to be both a king or a citizen and a devotee at the same time do that sort of thing. So what does it mean to be a citizen? Citizen, by definition, is a participatory member of a political community. Look it up. I'm not just making this stuff up. It means to participate in the political process of the society that you happen to be a part of. So now, the next not rhetorical question is, can we execute the duties of being citizens and devotees at the same time? In other words, who's our role model? Is our role model the four kumars, or is our role model Maharaj Prithu? Well, that depends on our natural aptitudes and inclinations, doesn't it? Because all of that is applicable. So, can voting be engaged in the service of the Lord? Is voting a prescribed duty for a devotee who lives in a representative democracy? Do we have a responsibility to participate on the basis of our values in order to build a bridge from what we've got to what we understand to be the kind of social structure that actually encourages and inspires people to elevate their consciousness and purify their heart so that they don't feel inspired to pick up an AR-15 and shoot as many people as they can, as quickly as they can. Okay, so how do we act on our values in order to transform our values into policies? How often do we think about building a bridge between values and policies? Not so often. Well, okay, so let's think about that. These are our values. Remember, earlier we heard about it's necessary, the kumars said, necessary to follow the four regulative principles. Well, here are the basis, this is the basis for our four regulative principles: austerity, purity, mercy, and truthfulness, the four pillars of Dharma. These are our values. And these are actions. Advocacy, speaking up for something that needs to be spoken up for. Service, getting right into performing a service for someone. Non-cooperation. If you want to get rid of something, just take the money out of it. Take the profit out of it. It'll go away. And resistance. Actually, direct action. Opposing something that ought to be opposed. Now, we actually do this already. It's an austerity not to cooperate with some of the norms of society. And when you combine that with mercy, we find that we don't eat meat. We don't participate in the industry that slaughters animals. We heard specifically that part of nonviolence is no slaughtering animals, so that we're already doing that. We also go through the austerity of advocating for our philosophy and our lifestyle as a way to change society in a way that will move everything in a good direction. So all of these things, all of our values can be plugged into all of these actions. So pick a cause, a worthy cause that we could act for on the basis of our values. Global warming. Climate change. We don't call it global warming anymore, we call it climate change. It sounds much nicer. Yeah, you know, we're environmentalists, right? Systemic racism, you know, the whole we are not these bodies is the basis, the rational basis for equality, which is the rational basis for justice. So if you want a rational basis for equality from which to engage in social justice, well, you have to start with you're not your body, you're spirit, soul. Because spiritually, we're all equal. Materially, we're not. We don't have a basis for social justice in a material concept of life because we don't have a basis for equality in any rational way. Healthcare. I talked to Jayadvaita Swami not too long ago, and I said, isn't universal healthcare like part of our philosophy? And he said, no, it's a big government program. The duty of the Vaishyas is to take care of the Shudras. So they need to do it. I said, okay, so in other words, the government should support the Vaishyas by creating a market by which the Shudras can purchase affordable care. Is that right? And he said, yeah. Obamacare is actually our philosophy. I was a little disappointed. I actually like the idea of universal health care. Okay. So, suicide prevention, you know, we don't want people to kill themselves. We don't like people to die, right? We're in the business of solving the problem of death. Hey, what about this issue? Remember this? We need to have a solution for this, because this happens every week. So what's our solution to this problem? Well, let's ask a question. What would the 4 kumars do? Well, they wouldn't do anything. They would just tell us what to do and just go off into outer space and go to the next.
That's like a trick question.
Yes, it is a trick question. They wouldn't do anything. But what would Maharaj Prithu do?
Yes.
That's not so tricky a question, because if a responsible monarch like Maharaj Prithu was in charge, would the Vaishyas and Shudras have guns? No, they would not. So the NRA doesn't really have to worry about snowflake, liberal, radical, leftist, socialists. They should worry about the Hare Krishnas. Because the Hare Krishnas are coming to take their guns. Because that's our philosophy. That is that. So we're all over the map on this, except that this is our philosophy. Okay, so who's our role model in this case? Maharaj Prithu for most of us. For many of us also, it'll be the 4 kumars, but for a lot of us, it's not an either-or thing. It's not either renunciation or participation. It's a both-and situation, which is how it is a lot in our philosophy. It's not a choice of one or the other. So devotional service can be a synthesis of both renunciation and civic duty, and if you take only one thing away from what I have to tell you today, then this is it. Devotional service can be and should be a synthesis of renunciation and civic duty if our prescribed duty includes participation in the broader community in which we serve. We have about 30 seconds. The curtains will open once again. Am I correct in this?
Yeah. First round, are we on? Yeah.
Okay, so, any questions? Fortunately, I asked you some questions along the way, which is usually how I do it. And I'm not going anywhere. I'll be around for a little while. So if anyone would like to discuss this further, I encourage you to discuss it amongst yourselves, but you can also discuss it with me if you so desire. Thank you very, very much.
dance together in Kirtana.
Krishna Prasthaya Mutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare
Jai Om Vishnu Padapam Sivarajacharya Soli Shamani's Divine Grace A.C. Bhagavat Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Iskanpana Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Nrsimha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamukunda Radhikund Giri Gopadan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Raipur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Yadamaya Ki Jai. Yadamaya Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Prabhupada's Transcendental Participation Ki Jai. Gaur all glories to His Lord. All glories to His Lord. All glories to His Lord. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to you, Shri Prabhupada. I'm thinking I could hold her if you want to chant the Shiva prayers. No.
Okay. And if she gets fussy, then my husband.
such an amazing class. Who wants Hare Kirtan to come back more often? And this is, of course, please. So we have a very, very special announcement. There's someone very, very special in our community who, if you guys like to laugh, always makes us laugh by their skits and their comedy and their talent, and is beloved by everyone in the community, is one of the most senior people in our community, has been a pillar of the Bhakti Center for so many years, and been like a father to me and so many people at Bhakti Center. He's looking around like, where is this going? Yamna Prabhu was his birthday yesterday. He knows it was his birthday yesterday, but what he doesn't know is that Akanta Bhakti sponsored the Prashadam for today for Bhagavat Sravanam. Served in the back for you all is sponsored by Akanta Bhakti for Yadana Prabhu's birthday. And we just want to, do you want to say anything, Akanta Bhakti?
Oh no. I'm letting the Prashadam speak for me.
Prashadam will speak for itself, but like I just want to say a few words about Yadana Prabhu. Like I'll keep it really short.
We're running late.
I'll keep it really short because I know. But just like literally, Akanta Bhakti and Yadana Prabhu are two of the most loving people I've ever met in my entire life, the most caring people, and are always caring and loving, and like parents for so many people in this community. They're mentors, they're on our mentorship board, and they're providing mentorship for many people. Yadana Prabhu is professional actor, playwright, comedian, and over the years has done so many incredible things and written so many incredible things and inspired us, and they're always giving to the community, and it's just, words really can't express how much they're loved. So if everyone can just close their eyes and just imagine Yadana Prabhu, that this is just the best year of his entire life in Krishna consciousness. And all those to come, that every single year gets better and better and better for the rest of his life, until the time of death, when he goes back home, back to the spiritual world, to continue serving Bhakti Charan Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada and Radha and Krishna. And that he's materially healthy and happy and well situated and peaceful and spiritually enlivened and growing closer and closer and closer to the goal of reaching pure devotional service in this lifetime. And we pray that he reaches pure devotional service in this lifetime. And everyone just give your blessings, and let's chant the Maha Mantra one time together with our hands raised to pray for him and bless him. And Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai! Jai! And this happens every Sunday, not his birthday, but every Sunday is Bhagavat Sravanam. So please come again. Next Sunday is going to be super special. Vasudev Prabhu is going to be giving the class, and it's going to be on the glorious life and departure of Dambakanda Swami. And he was with Dambakanda Swami at the time of death and very, very close with him. So he's going to be sharing a lot of his own personal story and realizations with the spiritual master. So it's going to be really special. And then the following week we have Sri Prahlad, and then the following week we have Garuda Prabhu. So, Haribol. Please everyone stay, make a donation if you want in the back, except not a Akanta Bhakti, she already did that. But, and have lunch for Shaka. Yes. Honestly, like, I was that class, it was like, I was just so amazing and so practical and so what devotees need to hear. For call for, we suck live stream. Call for, otherwise our whole conversation is going to be recorded. That's Gopal. Hare Krishna, everybody. Hare Krishna. Okay.